5-year-old girl disappears every evening. Her father followed her to this house. This 5-year-old girl kept disappearing from her family home every night after dinner. Her father decided to secretly follow her. When her father discovered the incredible truth and saw who his daughter was visiting every night, he bursts into tears and immediately called the police. He later tells local news channels that he still doesn't understand how his daughter had been able to do this unnoticed for such a long period of time. If my wife and I had discovered this sooner, we would have intervened immediately. It was the 4th day in a row that Tom found his daughter's room empty. It was always at the same time, between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. It wasn't unusual for Emma to be away from the house for an hour or so. She would usually play in the field behind the house, but she had never been away from the house for several evenings in a row. So Tom started to worry. When he asked his daughter about it, Emma always had a clever answer ready. It was her own business and her father should stay out of it. But Tom had to know. Where was his daughter going every night? He clearly wasn't going to get the answer from his daughter, so Tom decided to investigate things on his own. When Emma slipped out of the house on day 5, again, just after dinner, Tom knew that he had exactly 1 hour to search her room. He was determined to get the truth out. He stormed upstairs and immediately threw open all the closet drawers. Clothes were scattered through the room and every toy was turned inside out. But he found nothing. Until he saw a white sheet of paper sticking out from under her pillow. What could this mysterious note say? With big eyes, Tom shoved the pillow aside. He reached out his hand, picked up the note and started reading. Come to the house at the back of your field at 6:30 p.m. on the dot. And make sure you're alone. What the hell was going on? Why did his daughter have to appear alone for several days in a row, and who was the sender of this strange note? There was only one thing left to do. He had to follow his daughter. On day 6, Tom was ready. He was waiting impatiently in his hobby room, with the door ajar. This way he could keep an eye on little Emma, unnoticed. If she takes off right away, I'll follow close behind, he heard himself thinking out loud. The clock had struck 6 p.m. and his thoughts had clearly distracted him, for his daughter was nowhere to be seen. Tom ran to the back door just in time. Because there he saw Emma almost disappear into the woods behind their house. Emma had already disappeared from sight when Tom arrived at the edge of the forest, but he knew the house that was mentioned in the note all too well, so catching up with his daughter wasn't too difficult. The 5-hectare estate that Tom lived on with his family had been in his family's possession for almost 100 years, and the mysterious house used to be his grandparents' home. Nobody had lived in the house for over 50 years, but when Tom arrived, he got the fright of his life. There was someone waiting on the balcony. Tom hid behind a tree near the house and decided to wait for his daughter. What's Emma doing here? The worried father wondered. He didn't have to wait long, because after a few minutes, Emma appeared on the other side of the field. She gave the door a hard knock with her fist and the mysterious person disappeared from the balcony. The door opened and Emma walked in. Who was this mysterious person and what are they doing in the house, and more importantly, what are they doing with Emma? Tom acted quickly. He had the key to the old building and opened the back door as quietly as possible. Slowly but surely he stepped into the room, where he soon heard his daughter talking to the stranger. It was clearly a woman's voice. Tom stood outside the room against the doorpost and tried to catch a glimpse of the situation inside. They were clearly busy. Tom heard many footsteps, but not only those of his daughter and the mysterious woman's. And then Emma suddenly opened the door. Tom disappeared just around the corner before his daughter ran out of the room again. She left the house and was probably going back home. Tom thought. He could follow his daughter in that moment, but first he had to find out what it was that made this woman so special to his daughter. He threw open the door and was startled when he saw what was in the room. The room was filled with over 20 dogs, and in the corner sat the woman he was looking for. What the hell is going on here? The woman was clearly frightened and tried to get away quickly, but Tom stopped her. You're going to tell me what you're doing here and why you're meeting my daughter every day in secret. The confused woman burst into tears and sat down in her chair again. She took a deep breath and explained her sad story to Tom. If my wife and I had discovered this sooner, we would have intervened immediately. Tom later told the media. The woman was very old and had seen all her friends and family die over the years. She was left alone and lived in an old people's home near Emma's school. It was a lonely existence, the old woman told Tom. And just after her 80th birthday, she couldn't stand it anymore. I decided to escape from the institution, but no one could know, because then they'd put me back in there. The woman had been living on the streets with all her stray dogs for over a year. She was very malnourished, but then she met little Emma. The dogs were the only family I had left, but in a short period of time, they had lots of puppies. The old lady soon found it hard to keep herself and all her dogs alive, and she was nearing her end. Until Emma met the special woman during her break at school. Emma told her about the house on their estate and that she could live there safely and secretly. "I've lived here for about a month now," the woman told Tom. "But soon my food ran out, because I had to share it with all my animals. But then your dear Emma decided to help me again." For the past week, Emma had come to see the old lady and her dogs every day. She played with the dogs and asked if they were okay. But when the food started to run out, the little girl couldn't possibly do nothing. She took as much food as she could from home every day and gave it to the old woman and her dogs. It wasn't much, but just enough to survive, the old woman told Tom. Tom burst into tears after hearing her sad story. He quickly ran home to talk to his daughter. Once he got home, Emma was already sitting on a chair in the backyard. Tom ran towards his daughter and gave her the most intense hug. He told his daughter that he had followed her and that he knew everything about the old woman and her dogs. "You're absolutely not in trouble, honey, but please don't keep any more secrets from me, okay?" His concerns that day had turned into tremendous admiration and pride for his little girl. And when he told his wife the story, Emma's parents did something incredible. As a family, they decided to help the old woman, named Linda, and her dogs out. Linda was allowed to live in the house for free and got enough food every day, for herself and her dogs. But that wasn't all. Through crowdfunding, they managed to raise enough money to officially transform the house into a shelter for street dogs. Right now Linda, Emma, and her parents are taking care of about 40 stray dogs. 15 dogs have already been adopted. Emma regularly receives pictures and letters from happy new owners. All thanks to the brave action of this 5-year-old girl.